When you first started working with Kendall, you had just been promoted to AVP.
Mhm.
Can you tell me a little bit about what it felt like to get the promotion, how it came about that you were getting coaching? What did it feel like to have these things all come at you in a new way? How's that for starters?
So it's good for starters, and I took a few notes this morning, just trying to jot down my thoughts just sequentially.
Excellent.
To speak to the engagement itself, the timing of it, Chris. It's funny how timing works sometime in life in general. When I look back, when I received notice that Lewis was going to be departing the company, he gave a very short period, a short window for the transition to take place. So it was within a 30-day period that not only what did I get notice that I was going to be picking up that position, but I also moved out of my home. I had separated with my partner of 13 years, and I turned 40 all in a 30-day period. So it was some significant life events, both professionally and personally, that hit me in a very short window. And I didn't know that the company was going to engage, a coach for me. I'd never, quite frankly, I'd never participated in anything close to this level of professional help, professional and personal help before, even through therapy. So it was the timing was unusually beneficial for me to initiate the engagement. I mean, there was a lot to unpack. Uh, I don't think anybody's ever fully prepared for significant life events, but when they're concentrated in such a short period, it's really helpful to have a sounding board, a little bit of a guide at times. And it was, for with Kendall, we clicked out of the gate. It was just very easy for me to open up to her, not only on the professional level but personal level, which was super helpful. So
What do you feel contributed to that ease of connection?
I've been with the company for 16 years. January was my 16-year anniversary, and the culture at UDR for an extended period of time, and it continues to be this way, but I think we're going through a little bit of a shift. Was very much an old boys club. A little bit of this mentality of um, if you weren't wearing your cowboy boots on Friday, you weren't part of the club. And just by the nature of that culture, I was not showing up as the authentic version of myself for probably the vast majority of my career with the company. And I think what clicked with Kendall early on was this overwhelming sense that showing up and being who I am, being my most authentic self, was going to be the best version of a leader that this area needed. And I think in talking through that with Kendall early on, my walls broke down with her very easily. And it just allowed for me to have very candid conversations that I think were super pertinent to the 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 360-degree view of what was coming at me for that, for 2024 in general. So a long-winded answer, but the walls broke down early on, in part because Kendall convinced me, and even through the process of going through the 360, which I had never done before, um, you know, having that level of self-awareness and uh, I guess the reinforcement of showing up who I am, as a person, as a human, not just as a UDR VP, um, resonated, and so I think the conversations early on were much more transparent.
Can you expand just a little bit more about your authentic self
Sure.
then and now?
Um, wow, that's a deep question because it goes pretty far. Obviously as
How
a gay
about
man,
as
yeah,
the sound bite?
the sound bite. I mean, the long and short of it is, being a gay man and being gay at this company at the executive level is something that um, uh, didn't or doesn't exist really. And over a period of time, it was pretty evident that it wasn't necessarily an easy thing to bring up uh, at any point in discussion. Authenticity for me was allowing people to know who I am outside of work and being very comfortable with that. Because I love who I am. I love the life that I've built outside of UDR. And Kendall encouraged me to show that it's okay for my team to know, for the team in Denver to know exactly who I am. Yeah. I mean, authenticity for me comes from allowing my life outside the company to be part of what makes me a great leader.
I really appreciate that. It's allowed you to bring all of your worlds together to allow that on authenticity to shine through.
100%.
When you were told you were going to have a coach, what did that feel like for you?
Oh, I was very hesitant at first. Hesitant because uh, feedback loops are an interesting thing. And early on in engagement with Kendall, I let her know that for me to take the most out of my time with her, um, I really needed to know that I could trust my coach, that there was going to be a lot that we talked about that I felt it would be a disservice if what we discussed, um, you know, constantly made its way back to the executive team in Denver. And so that was where my hesitation was out of the gate. I wanted to lean in on this engagement, um, because I really wanted it. I really even more realize now that I needed it, but I was very cautious up front because I didn't know what was going to come out of our conversations and how much of that was going to flow back to um, you know, the C-suite team.
So it was a trust factor.
Correct. Very much a trust factor.
How did that trust get established to allow you to fully step into this opportunity?
Um, Kendall provided reassurance for me really on two fronts. One that I think is a commitment from a professional standpoint that there's not going to be a breach of that confidentiality. She gave me that professional commitment early on. I think it was really a twofold. One, just early on in engagement, Kendall gave me her professional commitment that, as a coach, that breach of confidentiality wasn't going to take place. And I thought about it and I gave myself a few days to digest it. I said, look, I know that Kendall was brought on it for this company because she's best in class, and I have to believe what her professional commitments are, that she's already made to me. I'd say second to that, the breakdown in trust was something that is not as easy to draw up on paper or to explain. But at the end of the day, when you develop a connection with someone, you can sense that early on. And I think that happened with Kendall. And I don't know if it was by chance, but I human to human connection is funny. And at times when you are, around someone that you feel that you can be vulnerable with, um, uh, it just is like a very organic feeling. And for me, that's what happened, maybe by chance, but that's how I truly felt with Kendall.
Were there any other strengths that she demonstrated throughout the course of your coaching that you could speak to?
Um, oh yeah, I mean, well, there's a number of strengths. Kendall, Kendall, continued to hold me accountable, and there were a lot of um, behaviors that I I don't say not a lot of behaviors that I needed to change, but a lot of behaviors that I think I needed to deploy as I was moving into this role. And it wasn't just, I think the initial discussion about authenticity was super important, but you know, our discussions around you know, I'll use feedback loops as an example, real-time feedback. It was great because every week I was able to bring kind of real life context to what was going on at the company, but with my role. And when moments came up where I was disappointed, or there were, meetings that didn't go well, or I wasn't having a team member execute on their commitment. Um, Kendall held me accountable to give the feedback real time. And it was tough to feel that pressure, but it was really healthy. Like that is something now that I am doing and I'm instilling in my team. I mean, especially out of the gate through the annual review process and as we jumpstart into 2025, um, real-time feedback is so important. And I think Kendall shining a light on that and then holding me accountable throughout our engagement made me a better leader in a very compressed period of time, because I see the value in that so much now that it's not going to be something I let go of. And in perpetuity, I know it'll be part of my style.
How did that feel for you, of what her balance was with you, with her pushing you versus allowing you to learn and to do and to speak?
Well, there were times where I pushed back. I mean, that's the healthy relationship that you have with the coach. It wasn't necessarily you need to do this. It was, yes, I hear you. There's a timing piece to this, but let me give you context about, what else is going on and why this needs to wait until next week. So when I say it was a good balance, it's just there has to be a little bit of a tug and pull, because in a perfect world, things are going to happen, right away. But I never felt overly pressured. Uh, uh, you know, it was a commitment I made, and because I believed in the behavior, um, I knew I wanted to deploy that. I just at times there were moments where we had healthy back and forth, which was important. Yeah.
So that sounds like, boundaries, and an exploration of what those looked like. And how did that impact you personally, professionally, or the combination of both?
When you say boundaries, so boundaries in terms of how far um, Kendall would push me to move forward with an action. Is that what you're
Yeah, yeah. How
referencing?
far
Yeah.
how far you would allow her to push you versus how
Oh,
far you would allow yourself to take on the challenge.
um, I would say I know this that you use the phrase you can you can lead a horse to water. Is that I believe that might be the case. Kendall was a guide, right? So she really truly was a guide. When I say accountability, it was more so, it was like a self-awareness that, she wasn't necessarily coming, well, show me what you put in front of the individual. Tell me what you said. It was much more of that guiding principle, and she just kept it at the forefront of our discussion. So I say boundaries. She was very respectful of the boundaries, because I think over the course of the 8 or 9 months that we worked together, um, Kendall got a really good sense of everything else that was happening at the company. And so she understood at times that there would be, there's time and place for these discussions. And, times there was a bunch of other shit going on. So it was tough. So she was very respectful of the boundaries. If anybody didn't establish boundaries in 2024, it was myself. And that was something that we highlighted through our engagement, and probably pushing a little bit harder to say no at times, and um, boundaries, establishing boundaries for myself is an ongoing part of what I need to work on that we've discussed. So yeah,
Really like the word guide that you
yeah.
used. Can you do me a favor and just what is what is the definition of guide to you?
I have had there's uh, people in life, people enter your life at various points and in different capacities, both professionally and personally. In my life, in the 40 years that I've been on the earth, there's been a few moments where I've had guides, and guides for me are, it feels much more collaborative in nature. A guide for me is a sounding board. A guide is at times playing devil's advocate. A guide is, it's not a guide to me is not someone who tells you what to do. A guide is you know, someone who listens to what is going on and helps you sort through it, really helps you find the path on your own, but is giving you many, many nuggets, to like this, think about this, let's discuss this. And so a guide helps you define your own path, create your own path forward. But those are I don't know if that's the answer to the question, Chris, but I don't look at a guide as I don't look at a guide as someone who directing me is not directing the how I should be a leader. A guide is challenging you to think how, you know, parts of your behavior that can make you be better.
What is feedback that you have received from others as a result of your coaching, whether that's bosses, employees, friends, partners, or all of the above?
Um, well, it's come from multiple angles. If I could start with my team, um, uh, this team that I have is feeling a different version of myself. They're seeing a different version of myself. The level of preparation has shifted completely. Accountability for preparation at multiple levels, whether it's for meetings, visits, um, uh, you know, on countless um, times throughout the year, especially probably in the last 3 months of 2024. The team felt more reassured by the kind of structured discipline that came from the higher level of preparation. And comments made at times, well, Kendall must be Kendall must be in your ear. And I think that everybody was able to meet Kendall. They knew that she was you know with me throughout the majority of 2024. Um, so I think the team made reference to Kendall on multiple occasions because they sensed the behavior changes, um, especially like I said, probably the last 3 months of the year. Um, you know, Kendall helped provide candid feedback, not only from the 360 assessment, but just behavior. Uh, uh, my behavior when I'm in the room with our C-suite team, maybe in meetings, pushing for higher level of listening rather than y- you know jumping in at times or potentially interrupting or and I think that as I had discussions with Kendall and I listened uh, w- to that feedback, I really tried to make a conscious effort when I was in the room with Mike Lacey or Fisher or CJ or anybody for that matter that was sitting at the table to shift that behavior a bit. And I think it was noted. I think Chris made mention to me on a few occasions that he had seen a little bit of my behavior change when we were in those settings. Um, so I don't know if that's fully answering your question, but on multiple occasions, especially Chris Johnson, um, let me know that he could see the benefit of my time with Kendall flowing through to the way that I was leading my team.
The C-suite. How has your interactions or how have your interactions changed with them as a result of the coaching, whether you to them or them to you?
Okay. So again, I think that for the C-suite team specifically, the interaction has changed because they're seeing a different version of Joe, and that version is the authentic version of myself. It's not, it's not just the business oriented, uh, 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 you know, dehumanized version of myself that was probably existing at the company for far too long. Found success at certain levels through that, but the more dynamic interaction with the C-suite team is those guys getting to know me at at multiple levels. It's not just what comes through, on our financial results. So I think that the interaction um, uh, that I've been able to have with the C-suite team as a result of Kendall has helped build a higher level of trust because these guys are seeing me for me. And I think that settles everybody. I mean, when you get to know people professionally, it's much more comforting to know that person a little bit more in depth, if you will.
For
That's
sure.
probably I didn't phrase that correctly, but I think that broadly speaking, I would say there's a higher level of trust because those guys are seeing me as me. So
And how does that feel for you?
it feels like a weight is lifted off my shoulder. It's almost like, trying to, trying to move day to day, month to month, and continually have those walls up for fear that, if you're too vulnerable, uh, that's going to shine through. It's like this. I can now just, I don't have to focus on that, that everybody, that it's like that weight is off my shoulders and I can just show up and, um, uh, focus on probably all the right things rather than something that was quite frankly really trivial, but it's part of I think there's a culture shift taking place at the company, um, much more broadly. And so this is something that's being pushed through more globally.
What do you feel that this will allow you to do now and in the future?
I would say the shift in the relationship that I've had with myself and the C-suite guys is something that I want to have with my team. And I think by humanizing myself and, showing up and being able to say, look, here's what throws me in and out of my flow state. And it's not just what's happening at work, here's what's happening at home. And this all together, I'm building a different level of trust with my team. And so that I think as you go forward, obviously, what you hope is that you have long-term associates. I mean, tenured associates, especially as you're trying to build something new, are helpful. And tenure comes with trust, and trust comes with you know um, time and authenticity. And so I think all this kind of moving forward just is probably building a better or more firmly built foundation with my own area.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on what you feel your flow state is or how your flow state
Mm.
has improved or even begun?
When I first heard the term flow state, I mean, it was from Kendall, and I had no clue what it meant. I didn't know what she was talking about. But as we kind of defined it and discussed this sense of being in the zone and this ability to know that you're um, uh, we all have those days, those weeks where you leave and you just know you crushed it. You know that you had very few distractions. We always have some distractions, but you were able to minimize distractions. You had the resources you needed. You you set the you establish your boundaries, and you surrounded yourself with what you needed to show up that day and be the best version of yourself. And my gosh, like having enough self-awareness to know what puts you in your flow state is so powerful because everybody can find it. And like part of my messaging in 2025 is really this vision of elevating your execution. And I'm challenging every one of my managers through the review process to go home and think about what puts you in your flow state. When are you the best version of yourself? And for me specifically, I need to be I need to I'm a creature of comfort. I'm a creature of habit as well. I like stability and from a housing standpoint. So that was a whole adventure in 2024. But my diet and my and exercise, the amount of sleep that I get at night. These are very small things, but I realize that those are drivers, very fundamental, like just life drivers that help me show up to work and not be distracted about what is going on on the home front. So from a from everything outside of UDR, those are uh, big contributing factors to put me into my flow state. On the work side, I would say um, it was a little bit of a painful transition, a little bit of a cultural shift to flush out some old behaviors, some uh, individuals that probably held on for too long, accepting the underperformance of many folks, and those ended up those those caused disruptions. Uh, uh, you know, at times it pushed me out of having a stable office environment, which was also a huge, part of me being able to be in the zone. Um, and all that has come to fruition. We came full circle and we are able to flesh out a lot of what needed to. My office is in the final stages of being built out, but we, found a home base and really I'm able to build off that. So there's just pulling it all together, realizing that for me, flow state is boundaries. It's everything that's outside of work that's going to put me in a good mental state, and then uh, you know, being comfortable in my own working environment, my office space.
How do you feel that you showed up for your coaching?
I leaned in on it pretty hard, um, and it was very much outside my comfort zone initially. I mean, I'll just be super candid. It was very much outside my comfort zone, not something that because those walls were up. It took me a little bit to want to lean in. Um, uh, but I feel like I needed this and I recognized that early on. So I sunk my teeth into the engagement and the conversations. And so I'm thrilled with what I've been able to take away.
Would you recommend Kendall to other people and why?
I already have. God, it's really hard to put into words. I don't want to use the word therapy, but had other I've had therapists. I in a limited capacity worked with a few other coaches um, uh, as we were supporting some of my team on their 360 assessment. And Kendall approaches Kendall approaches her commitment to it felt like Kendall was always committed to me. I felt like I knew I could. I mean, I can text Kendall any day of the week at any time. I know that I could reach out to her, and she was going to be there if something was popping up. It wasn't just tied to our 1 hour, weekly sessions or whatever it may be. Um, it was more constant. It was like a constant contact, which felt really good, but it wasn't overbearing. And I just knew that um, uh, Kendall's able to look at the picture holistically and tie that into, a future state for myself, if you will. So outside of the fact that I just really, love her personality, and Kendall was vulnerable with me too. I mean, it made it much more easy to want to engage with her on you know, on a on a different level because she opened up to me. I think that that's the best. I think that's really made for the best outcome. Is it wasn't just me unpacking; it was, you know, not necessarily Kendall unpacking, but Kendall shared her life with me as well, and that was helpful. Whether it was just discussions that were help, on a relative basis, or a comparison of some, not a comparison, but just something that may have overlap. And I appreciate that. I appreciated Kendall's authenticity with me.
Would you have any suggestions for how she could improve or items she could do differently or better?
The only ask, which was more a constraint of just cost, was I wish I could get more physical face to face time with Kendall. I wish I had more opportunity for Kendall to shadow me and be a part of more meetings. I think it was hard. Uh, the remote thing is part of the engagement, and she can't be out on the East Coast all the time. I fully understand that. Um, um, I think I think if I were to go back and say, 2024 probably with my schedule and the amount of visitors and tours that we had, probably also wouldn't have allowed for it. But I would love to re-engage Kendall now that this first year in my new role is up, and try to reestablish some type of different engagement um, that would allow for more face-to-face time, physical face-to-face time. Yeah,
Excellent. So
yeah.
your experience has been such that you would like to continue? Is that fair?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna make a case for it. So, yeah.
What does making a case look like or sound like?
Um, what I know about the last 8 months is there's a lot of uh, behaviors that I know I'm going to run with. There's a lot of behaviors that I know I'm going to continue to um, implement as I move forward as a leader. I at times the sounding board or that guide is something that should be more continuous. I don't care, I guess in my role, I think at any especially elevated role as a leader, the con- the continuous nature of a guide, if you will, um, only makes the outcome better. Um, Cost constraints are one thing, but just broadly speaking, um, people should have a guide their whole life. I mean, it's it's not just a limited. It shouldn't just be a limited engagement, but unfortunately, obviously, resources are such that it can be tough. But I think that you know you never can lose sight of the value of a sounding board, and a sounding board is someone that sometimes is best served coming from outside of your company.
What do you have to say for anybody that's considering coaching or actually more importantly, is considering working with Kendall?
Lean in. I can't say that enough. You're going to get the most out of an engagement like this if you make a personal commitment to yourself that you're going to you're going to participate in the exercises, that you're going to step into the homework assignments, and spend time thinking about uh, uh, you know spend time thinking about how the uh, uh, you know thought processes will kind of, you know, infiltrate your day to day. I mean, if you don't lean into it and you're not pushing yourself to take the most out of it, it's going to be a very surface level, conversation. Uh, you just have to want it, and if you don't want it, you're not going to get that much out of it.
And why Kendall?
In my opinion, Kendall's best in class. I mean, she's a wonderful human first and foremost, and she's an excellent listener, and she is committed. She, clearly shows a commitment to her clients, and outside of everything, I know she's going to be probably part of my life for a very long time. I really do believe that.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that I may have missed or that you're feeling inside that you'd like to share?
I mean, like I said, I just feel very grateful that I was able to have this come through in my life in 2024, especially just given the transitional year. It was hugely impactful.